What's going on, everybody? Today I'll be showcasing the absolute full free-to-play potential of our Bloom support, Lauma, which I have already double count at this point, using the latest craftable catalyst, the R5 Black Mellow Lantern. Well, it took me over 5 hours of farming and raiding other people's world to get it done, and I actually ended up with a serious headache, like literally. That said, for you guys it was absolutely worth it, and I can't wait to show you just how strong she really is. Anyway, as for the artifact, this is actually pretty interesting because in my opinion, neither of the new sets really suits her, and it's better to go for the old Nilou memories. As for why, one of them is meant for on-field DPS, so it's an easy pass. The other set, the Silken Moon Serenade, however, seems tailored for her as it buffs your elemental mastery, along with a pretty decent lunar damage buff. But honestly, I would say it's better to put this set on Hydro units like Aino and C0, who previously didn't really have a proper artifact set for the Dendro focused teams. So that's why it's best to stick with the old Nilou memories for Lauma, as it buffs all kinds of Dendro damage without any exception. Not to mention, the resistance shred is extremely valuable in these days, since most enemies come with huge resistance. Stat-wise, aside from stacking the elemental mastery, energy recharge is actually equally as important, as she heavily relies on her burst to buff your bloom damage. And since we're already going with an EM weapon, it's better to go for the ER Sand. Finally, as for her talent, her skill provides valuable Dendro resistance shred, while her burst gives a huge buff to your bloom damage, so it's best to comb them both. Ignore the normal attack as always, since they are basically useless on a support. Now first off, to see whether she's truly meta, there's no better way than comparing her to the former Dendro meta support, Nahida. First of all, Lauma's seeds deals about 30% more damage than Nahida's, which is definitely a great boost. And that's not even counting the fact her seeds can crit, something that used to be exclusive to Nahida's C2. On the other hand, she's the only Dendro applicator who can shred Dendro resistance without any condition, which makes her pretty much irreplaceable in any Dendro teams when up against high resistant enemy. And lastly, unlike Nahida, Lauma's Dendro application is not tied to the enemy, meaning that she has no problem against multiple waves, especially when paired with certain DPS with long off-field time. But as trade-off, her application duration is much shorter than Nahida, so at the end of the day, she's still not suitable for C0. Poor fellow. But still, with all these buffs on bloom damage, I would say she pretty much single-handedly revised the entire bloom reactions, bringing it back into the meta just like it was in Subaru. So if you enjoy any bloom teams, you definitely don't want to skip this character. So now moving on to the team building, it's clear she's basically a better Nahida in any teams that revolves around bloom reactions, meaning that you can straight out replace Nahida for her and see a huge positive improvement. So Hyperbloom with C0, Cookie, Alhaitham, Coland, Burgeon with Kinich, and Nilou's Bloom with Nilou, of course, just to name a few. But of course, you can always run both Nahida and Lauma together, like for example Coland and Cookie's team, where Lauma takes Fisher's spot. Needless to say, Lauma is definitely stronger than Fisher, not just in bloom damage, but also in raw damage output for Lunar Bloom. By the way, regardless your team choice, you should always bring Aino instead of other Hydro units, so you'll have 2 Noclai units in the team for the full moon sign, which gives us a lot of additional buffs. On the other hand, there's a rather interesting mechanic with lunar reactions that involves our team building. Depending on your non-Noclai teammates' elements, they can passively boost your lunar damage based on their stats, up to 36% lunar damage bonus. Normally, this isn't something you need to worry about, since it's simply a free passive bonus. But for certain characters like Cookie Shinobu, well, it does matter a bit since she's built for EM rather than attack, meaning that she contributes much less to lunar damage compared to the others. Same goes for C0, Child, Utao, etc., whose main stats don't line up with the buff stats. But honestly, don't let this stop you from picking these characters, as it's just a small bonus for bringing non-Noclai units, which isn't impactful enough to avoid using them at all. Alright, with so many bloom team variations out there, I'll show you the most interesting one in this video, starting with a pure free-to-play team that's easily accessible even for new players. From my experience so far, I'll say it's pretty much Sumeru all over again, where you can clear the abyss with minimal investment. All you need to have is 2 EM artifact sets and level out to level 90, then you can pretty much clear the abyss without any problem. Just take a look at this footage where Lauma's out against Clouds with Dendro DPS, basically one of the worst scenarios for her. But even so, I can still finish it in time with the most budget team. And of course, feel free to replace Crowley with any sub DPS you have, like Fischl, Miko, Nahida, and Ineva, especially Nahida since she's a Dendro sub DPS who can benefit from Lauma's resist strat. Now speaking of which, all Dendro DPS are getting buffed because of that, namely Alhaitham and Nilou, and obviously the Snake Girl in the next patch. But for some strange reasons, my fully built Alhaitham is actually on par with Crowley in the previous team, which is just unexpected. The only reason I can think of is that Lauma is a lot more suitable for quick swap teams, where she can repeatedly trigger her Luna Bloom right when her cooldown refreshes. Since her Luna Bloom damage is quite strong with all the buffs, it's actually understandable for Alhaitham to lose. After all, he's already a 3-year-old DPS. On the other hand, you can go for the Electro DPS SOC detonator instead of Cookie Shinobu, which is pretty viable in theory, but personally I don't recommend anyone except Crowland, who is the only Electro DPS that can heal herself, especially with Fulina's buff, which allows you to bring Nahida instead of Dendro healers. That said, you could still try it with other Electro DPS, but you have to rely on prototype Nahida for healing, which is pretty dangerous if your enemy is highly aggressive. If you switch out Nahida for Dendro healers, the team becomes a little bit too weak that it's better to go back to our Cookie. Trust me, I've tried. By the way, it pains me to say this, but among all the possible Bloom teams, C0 is probably the worst team for Lauma, even worse than the first pure free-to-play team. His on-field time is simply way too long for Lauma, and combined with the downtime in Electro application, he just can't effectively make use of her Bloom buff at all. That's the flaw of C0's kit, and unfortunately there's no way around this. So yeah, my condolences to any C0 mains out there. Aside from Hyperbloom, Burgeon is technically a solid choice as well, especially for Kinich as she can basically act as Emily's substitute thanks to her Dendro resistance strat. But unfortunately there's no pyro healer aside from Bennett, who has no off-field application at all, so even though it feels really nice to play, it doesn't work. Finally, we have Nilou, who is undoubtedly the strongest team for Lauma at the moment. Not only is it incredibly powerful against Clouds, but it's also a full quick swap team, making it perfect fit for Lauma's playstyle. So yeah, if you already own Nilou, there's no reason to go for any other teams at all, as this one is just way stronger. But if you don't have Nilou yet, well, do not pull her in the Chronicle Wish, because Lauma with Nilou is 100% not the final team. So finally we have come to the end of this video. In my opinion, I'll say Lauma is an excellent pool for free-to-play players, even more so for the new players as she doesn't need much investment to deal solid damage. Besides, it's been such a long time since we got a new universal support who can join so many different teams, so even if you're not going to put a Snake Girl in the next patch, she's still very worth pulling, especially if you own Nilou. Alright, that's about everything in this video, so if you find this helpful, please leave a like and subscribe, and leave the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.